Good morning, beautiful people. How are you today? And welcome back to your free tarot teaching. So on today's video, we are going to be discussing card number 2 in the Major Arcana, but it is actually the 3rd card in the Major Arcana because the Fool was 0. So the card we're discussing today is the 2nd card in the Major Arcana, and that is this beautiful card, the High Priestess. This card is typically associated with intuition, inner knowing, inner knowledge, mysticism. It's very rich and deep in symbolism, as you can see. Fundamentally, it's a card about our inner world. Intuition being the inner world, your inner knowing, that gut feeling, that's your High Priestess. When this card comes up in a reading, it's telling you and emphasizing the point that there is a need to listen to your inner guidance, to your intuition, to that gut feeling, and to follow that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have all the answers we'd ever need inside of us anyway. But the problem is, a lot of the time, we ignore that gut feeling, or we ignore that inner knowing. Ultimately, when this card shows up, it is asking you to look deeper than surface level. It's asking you to go within, because the answers are always there within you. But let's jump into the symbolism and the imagery that is on the card. The symbolism and the imagery that's on the card. Let's begin with the High Priestess herself. The figure. She's usually depicted as a very serene woman, very enigmatic. She's usually seated between 2 pillars, as you can see here. She's seated in the middle. One, specifically on the Rider-Waite, but also on some other tarot decks. One is usually labelled with a B, and one is labelled with a J, which stands for Boaz, and I can never say this, Yahin. These pillars, these are taken from the Temple of Solomon, and what they do is they symbolise the duality, they symbolise balance, and they symbolise the entrance to the sacred. So that's quite clearly shown here, with one pillar being black, one pillar being white. That clearly shows the duality, the light and the dark. And the fact that she sits in between the two shows that she's able to have access to that inner knowledge, that inner knowing, as well as also having access to the external information available to her. But she sits in between the two, being able to kind of walk in the middle path between the two to find the answers she's looking for. Next, you'll see that she's holding a scroll in her hand. And quite often it's labelled as the Torah, which it is here. And this simply means that this scroll she's holding, it contains hidden wisdom. This is symbolising hidden knowledge, it's symbolising secrets, and it's symbolising the importance of learning. And the fact that she's holding it in her hand shows that she has access to this hidden knowledge and to inner wisdom and to secrets, because she is listening to her intuition, which is her inner compass, which will always guide her correctly. You'll notice at her feet there is a crescent moon. Now, the High Priestess is often associated with the moon. It usually appears at her feet, but sometimes can appear up here above her crown. And the reason why she's associated with the moon is because the moon represents intuition, it represents the subconscious mind and the cycles of life. Obviously, at night when the moon is out, it's dark, you can't see clearly. And the moonlight will allow enough light for you to be able to kind of find your way around. But everything else is pretty much in darkness and it's difficult to navigate. So that is symbolic of showing that by listening to that inner guidance, it will shine a light in the darkness for you to be able to find the answers you seek, or to follow that inner knowing, that inner intuition. And then you'll notice behind her there is a veil, and this veil is covered with pomegranates, sometimes other symbols, depending on what tarot deck you're using, but this is the Rider-Waite, so it will be pomegranates. Now, this veil is representative of the separation between the conscious and the subconscious mind, and the barrier between the physical and the spiritual worlds. It's almost like it's basically representing that sort of like, not disconnect, but kind of that barrier between the two things. The pomegranates themselves, they symbolise fertility, abundance, and the divine feminine. The High Priestess is very much a divine feminine energy because she is guided by her inner knowing, her intuition. She's not guided by her ego. She's not guided by, worries or anxieties or fears. That's why she's always shown as a very calm person, very serene person. She does not allow fears, anxieties to govern her actions or her choices. I'm not sure you can see clearly, but behind these pillars and behind this veil, there is a body of water. It's not the easiest to see on these cards. And basically why there's a body of water behind this veil and behind the pillars is it's because it's representing the flow of emotions. It's representing the flow of intuition and the flow of put my teeth back in, and the flow of the subconscious mind. And obviously it sits behind these barriers, it sits behind these pillars. And that is because there is a need to connect into those emotions. There's a need to connect into that intuition, and there's a need to connect into that inner knowing and the subconscious mind. We tend to live our lives disconnected from a lot of things. We tend to disconnect a lot from emotions, strong emotions that we don't like. We push them away. We disconnect from our subconscious mind and allow our conscious mind, our ego, to drive us. And that's why it's depicted behind the veil. It's depicted behind the pillars, because you can access that once you overcome our conscious mind. Once we overcome our ego and allow our intuition to start guiding us, that's when we have access to our subconscious mind, to our inner knowing. And then you'll notice as well that she's wearing a blue robe. She's got a cross on her chest, and she is wearing what is known as a horned diadem or a crown. These are all symbols of her divine knowledge and her status as a divine ruler. This all shows that she is highly connected to divinity, highly connected to her spiritual side, highly connected to her intuition and her inner knowing. She is seated in a place of authority because she has authority over herself, because she is being guided not by her ego or her conscious mind, but by her intuition, her inner knowing, and her subconscious. Because she knows at every moment in time she has access to all the information she would ever need by being in connection with these things. Right, that being said, let's jump into the upright interpretations.